This episode is brought to you by Lumina Growth Lab. At Lumina, we help professional learning and development companies who are struggling with predictable lead flow, a sniper approach to attracting the ideal clients, and a system to qualify leads so they can have a smoother sales process, finally have scalability, and ultimately take their business to the next level. Most of the time, our clients come to us frustrated because nothing seems to work outside of word of mouth and referral based lead generation. But with the right strategy and support, they're able to confidently add new channels of lead generation and a packed pipeline that creates sustainable revenue and year-over-year growth for cheaper than ever before because of the use of AI technologies. If that sounds like you or someone you know, connect with me on LinkedIn and I'd be happy to have a conversation with you about unlocking your business's potential. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to the Marketing Matrix, guys. I'm your host, Lisanne Murphy, and I am so excited today. Today, we have a very, very special guest, someone that has a wealth of experience and is not slowing down. I have just been really amazed since I've had the opportunity to meet Kim and talk with her about her passion for the development and consulting industry and the impact that she's making. So, guys, please welcome Kim Barnes onto the show. Kim, thank you so much for coming today.
You're very welcome. Thanks for referring to my age, Lizette.
I did indirectly, just that you, most people are just like sipping pina coladas on the beach and you're still
No,
pounding the personal development pavement. I love it. So let me take a moment to introduce this powerhouse woman, and then I'm really excited for her to share her knowledge and her expertise. So Kim Barnes is the CEO of Barnes and Conti Associates, a leadership development company that teaches the difficult skills needed to be a successful leader. She is the author of several books, including Exercising Influence, a guide for making things happen at work, at home, and in your community, published by Wiley. Building Better Ideas, How Constructive Debate Inspires Courage, Collaboration, and Breakthrough Solutions, published by Barrett Kohler, and Consulting on the Inside, a practical guide for internal consultants, published by ATD Press. She has also published 2 mysteries with an organizational development consultant as the protagonist, as well as many essays and journal articles. Kim has been both an internal and external OD practitioner for more than 45 years and has worked with public companies, government organizations, and nonprofits globally during this time. She is considered a thought leader in her field and enjoys mentoring young leaders in training and development. Again, guys, wherever you're at, give a round of applause for Kim. Kim, thank you so much for coming. We're really excited to have you.
I'm delighted to be here, Lizanne.
Okay, so I'm really excited to hear about, everyone has kind of like their origin of how they got into personal development. Like, what was the thing that really turned on the light bulb for you that change is possible, that we can develop ourselves? I'll share just a quick story with you. For me, I was in my early 20s and it was Christmas break and I had the flu and I was sicker than a dog. And I went down to my grandparents' shelf and I picked up a book off of the shelf and I started reading it. And it was a book called Drive by Daniel Pink. And in the book, it talks about
Mhm.
intrinsic and extrinsic motivation and what motivates us beyond like the external factors of money and benefits, and what drives us internally to do the work that we do. And as soon as I read that book, I was just like, where's more of this? Like, I need more. And I became an avid consumer of personal development books, of self-help books, of business books, and just have just been enamored ever since. And so I'm curious for you, Kim, what was the origin story of how personal development became such a lifelong passion and profession for you?
First, I want to say you couldn't have started with a better book. That's really a wonderful book. So I hope other people will follow your advice on that. I think the way I started is pretty different from the way most people start in this business. I started because I was teaching kids with learning problems, kids who were smart, but who were having difficulty reading or difficulty managing their behavior in classrooms. And so they came to me and I loved working with those kids. And it was all about change. It was all about how to let them find a way that worked for them to accomplish the results that they wanted to. And essentially, that's still what I do. So I think it's possible that some of those children now are very senior executives. They were certainly smart enough to be. But even if those particular children are not in those roles, I think that the people that we have worked with traditionally are people that are open to learning, people that are open to change, people that are excited about finding something new. Well, I have to say, not all of them at the beginning, but many of them have that in them. And we sort of count on that happening as we work with them, that they become more open, more flexible, more skillful, and more excited about the possibilities for what they can accomplish and what their teams can accomplish.
Yeah, I love that so much. Okay, have you always been a writer? Like, is writing something that you've always had a desire to do and it's been natural for you, or was that a skill that you learned later?
No, I think I picked up a pen somewhere around second grade and never put it down. It transitioned with the technology, but I've always loved to write, and I still
Did you
do.
write your first book with just pen and paper?
My first book, no, I wrote some articles as a child that were published in my school newspaper. But when it came down to actual professional writing, that happened after, the technology improved.
Okay. No,
Long time ago,
my
though.
yeah, my grandfather self-published several books, and he did everything pen and paper. He pulled together his journals and compiled his journals, and he would write and rewrite. And it wasn't
That's
until he felt
great.
like he had a manuscript that he would bring my mom or my aunt into it to change his written word over to the keyboard so that it could go to press. But I was
Uh-huh.
always impressed. He had folders of pages and pages, and moving pages around and sticking things in. So I'm always fascinated to know if someone's put together a project in that fashion. So do you have a work that you're most passionate about or one that you're most proud of?
I think probably having developed the, exercising influence program and then later writing the book, I think people often do it the other way around. That was the way I did it. I felt like that was something that was meaningful in people's lives, not only at work, but also, as the subtitle of my book says, also at home and in their communities. It's something we have to do every day.
Yeah.
It's something we're all pretty good at when we're very small. I don't know any toddlers that aren't pretty good at getting what they want, but we lose it over time. You know, we lose it in school, we lose it at work. And so, my project has been calling that back for people, having them both remember what it was like to have an intention to influence someone and and the skills that they already have. We help them build on those and gain new skills so that they become more able to think about it, plan for it, execute their plan, sometimes very informally. But we all need to influence. And I think if we can do it in a way that's positive for both parties or all parties,
Mm,
people end up with greater satisfaction in their lives. Kind of what I'm about.
I love that. So you draw on our innate abilities that we have as young people for survival, essentially.
Yeah, it's for survival then, but as we grow, as we develop, if we can keep that or if we can relearn it, it becomes for more than survival. It becomes for having a good life, for having a great career, for having real impact in the world about things you care about. So influence it's a big topic, and I've
Yeah.
always been fascinated by it.
Are those frameworks that you still use in your consulting business today?
Yes. We have many other programs as well, but that's still exercising influence is still our most popular program.
Interesting. Do you
Yeah.
think that's because it's one of the most desired attributes of a leader, or is that because it's your favorite?
No, it's not up to me really, unless it's perhaps that we are very enthusiastic about that and we're able to help people see where they can use those skills if they hadn't already thought it. A lot of people say, "Oh, I need to communicate better," or "I need my team to communicate better with one another." But when you drill down on that a little bit, it's not merely communication. It's not just moving ideas around, but it's getting some action as a result of that. And so it turns out that people at every level, but certainly at all the levels of leadership, it's really a required skill set if you're going to be successful. But
Yeah.
I think it
I love
is important for all of us in our lives too.
Yes, absolutely. So, can you walk us through a small case study of like maybe an issue that was happening in the organization and they applied a portion of the
Sure.
influence framework and then the result that occurred because of it?
Yeah. Most of the companies that we work with are very large global companies. We also work with nonprofits and we sometimes do open programs for individuals, but primarily we work with the larger firms. And I can think of one company in the pharmaceutical industry that had a lot of talented people who were not collaborating with one another, and therefore they were not really getting the best results. And it wasn't because they didn't want to, but it was primarily because they had lost those skills that they had as children, and they needed to find their way back to being able to have high impact in the way that they communicated with one another, collaborated with one another, and we worked with that company for well over a year, perhaps, and saw great results. It was reported to us that people were having much more impact. They were much more collaborative. That's typical. Um, sometimes we do this with intact teams, and that always has great results because we're doing the work of the team while they're learning the skills. So we frequently have that get good reports when that happens. So that's a typical kind of large scale and smaller scale. Sometimes we
Sure.
work for a long period of time with many groups in the company. Sometimes it's just one team, but we look for that kind of result for people to feel that they can work together in a much more productive way and accomplish greater things than they could by themselves or with just a small group.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I love it. So, what do you feel are the things that people misunderstand about influence?
There's one that always comes up or almost always comes up, and that is that people mistake influence for manipulation. They think that if you actually think about it and plan for it, that there's something that's not natural and real about that. We always tell people that influencing is done in the open. Manipulation tends to be under the table, secret. You kind of know what's going on, but nobody's being honest about it. With
Mm,
influence, you can say to somebody, if I said to you, I'd like to manipulate you, Lisanne, I don't think you'd like that. But if I were to say, Lisanne, I'd like to influence you to do X, okay, we're used to that. And it's two ways. Manipulation tends to only go in one direction.
mm.
Influence goes in both directions. If I influence you, I fully expect you to influence me, and for the two of us to come up with something greater than either of us could come up with alone.
I love that. Do you feel like, or have you experienced leaders that they say it's influence, but it's actually
Of
manipulation and
course.
there's retraining? Yeah.
I think many people have not had good role models for this. I've had a lot of people in the classes that I have taught over the years say, I always wondered why so and so, naming somebody in their company, always seemed to get great results. And now that you're pointing this out to me, what I can see is that this person was actually influential. And they didn't just accomplish things because they coerced people into doing it. People seem to be very readily interested in doing it. This is I, I always thought that was something kind of magic and it was due to that person's personality. I didn't realize it was a skill set that I could learn too,
Interesting. So since it's like you've brought up multiple times that it's like something that we've forgotten,
in a way. Yeah.
is it difficult to learn? Or is it almost like, "Oh, there's my keys," and you just, like, pick up your keys and go to your car? Like,
It's
what's the
not quite
learning
like
curve?
that. It's not quite like as adults, we influence in different ways than we did as children.
Influence I can get going now, or is there more of a learning curve?
It's a little more complex than that. What I think is maybe like finding your keys is remembering that it's okay to intend to influence. I think there are some people, uh, often women, but not always, some cultures more than other cultures, where the idea of out and out influencing someone feels a little uncomfortable, a little anti-cultural, maybe um, not not what I was taught to do. So one of the things we have to do from the beginning is help people remember what it was like to say, I want this to happen and I'm going to go about it. I'm going to see if I can get this person uh, to work with me to make this occur. Babies don't think that way, but that's essentially what they're doing, you know? So that's the part we want people to remember is that and we also want them to remember many times in their lives where they did actively influence and they achieved something important by doing it. Okay,
Mm,
so for most people, influence is something that they don't tend to plan for, but they recognize looking back, I did that. Okay. So what we're trying to help them do is realize that it's okay for you to think about it, plan for it before you go into a meeting or even when you're talking with somebody. And you may think, I would like this person's support on this thing. And knowing what I know about this person, having a certain understanding of the skills involved, I will decide that I will initiate an influence conversation.
I love it. Are you writing anything right now? Like what's ideas that you're working on currently?
I have been thinking about writing something. I write all the time because I write essays and articles and things like that. But I've been thinking you may be surprised to learn that I've been thinking about writing a book for young people. I've always been interested in influence in the family, and I actually at one point had the delightful experience of being invited to come and influence a sixth grade class. It was a father who had been in one of my classes, got the school to invite me during some kind of a little break they were having where the kids were doing something different. And it was a lot of fun. I will say there was a little bit at that age, a little bit of gender difference in terms of how the kids took it up, and I'll leave that up to your imagination. But we did have a lot of good results when I came back another a week later.
That's so
Yeah, so
fun.
I
I
think
love
this is something that's valuable in families for people who know and understand,
mm,
and so I'm thinking about doing something along those lines.
yeah, that's wonderful. And what are either you or your consulting company, like what are some initiatives in 2026 that you guys are teeing up?
Well, we are interested in expanding our reach, and so we're going to be doing some more collaboration to make that happen. And I'm excited about it. Can't talk about what that is specifically yet, but it's something that I think will be of great benefit to our customers.
Cool. That's awesome. I'm excited. Can you share it all in terms of like is it like internal content or some M&A situations to expand, or can you really just not share anything?
Not right now, but I will say it's something that I'm personally very enthusiastic about.
That's great. That's fantastic. So, and is there something personally that you're looking forward to in 2026?
Yes, there is. In March, I will become a great grandmother.
That's so awesome. That's a big one.
It's a very big one. I'm thrilled.
Are you yeah, I was going to say like it's probably like one of those like I'm so excited but also like how did this happen?
Right. I mean, I went to my grandson's wedding a couple of years ago, so I knew they wanted to have kids, so it was not a complete surprise. But
Sure.
it was a very thrilling when I heard the news just a few weeks ago.
Congratulations to you and your family. That's a
Thank
big
you.
one. So you guys your company's been around for has it were the books that you're writing from like other organizations, or has it always been under your consulting umbrella? Like
No, but
how long have you been around?
Barnes and Conti started formally in 1984. So we've been around a long time,
Nice.
and
So that was the year I was born. So your company's as well as
I've been
that's
there your
great.
entire life. Why are we
That's
just meeting
fantastic.
now?
I know, right? It's my loss for sure. So, and how like you since you've been around a while, what are you doing to find customers? Like, is it primarily word of mouth? Like, do you have outreach efforts that are going on? Is it through social media? Like, how like when a company's been around for as old as I am, I'm turning 41 next week. At the time of this recording. So I'm just curious, like how does your company draw in new people to work with, new companies to work with?
Well, my very excellent staff is really really does a great job with this. In particular, our senior VP of business development has she uses LinkedIn a lot because she's been in this business for a long time and she reconnects with people and she has a kind of a the gift of staying in touch with people, whether they're people who could give us business or not. And so they may end up going somewhere else and they take us with them. She's also, the person who uses lists and things like that. So a lot of what we do is repeat business, but we're always looking for new customers.
So how are you guys evolving with like the trends of AI that are coming out and are just totally taking the world by storm? How are you guys addressing that?
Interestingly, I was on a podcast earlier today with somebody that is in that business. And I think the biggest way it affects companies like ours is that as AI begins to do a lot of the work that human beings used to do, and the things that are uniquely human, the skills that are uniquely human that the AI can't do yet, become more valuable, and those are the skills we teach. So the skills that have to do with human interaction, with inspiring people, with leading people, with helping them think more strategically. Those are the kinds of things that I think are more valuable than ever because there are other kinds of technologies that'll do a lot of the things we used to do. So let's focus on the things that only we can do so far, at least.
Yeah. I really appreciate that perspective and um love that I think it's really, really important that we do our best to hold on to those human elements, and not just think that AI can just do everything for us because it can do a lot, but we're still going to need each other and we still need to connect with each
Yes.
other. So, yeah, I love that and agree with that. What was that? I guess as you look back at like your own personal journey, like what would be some advice that you would have given your younger version of yourself in terms of if you look back and you're like, wow, like if I would have like either chilled out here or recognized this here, like it's all gonna be okay, or like whatever it is, like what's something you would tell a younger version of yourself?
Well, what came to mind immediately, and you said a version of it, is this too shall pass. When you run up against something that it just seems impossible, and you're struggling with it, and you're just feeling not able to deal with it, you'll get to the other side of it. You may have to go there a different way from the way you expected. So the main message is keep your vision in mind and be willing to be flexible about how you achieve it.
That's wisdom right there. Is there anything in particular that's happened in your life that you're like, wow, like I could have never imagined it being this sweet or this great? Whether that's a personal, family thing or a professional accomplishment or maybe one of both, but, like, what's something you look back and you're like, "I couldn't have ever foreseen this for myself, but it's actually perfect."
I've had a lot of very special moments in my life. I think I've been very fortunate in that way. And I recently, at the request of one of my adult granddaughters, I wrote a memoir and started out to be a memoir of the family. It ended up being a memoir of me. And I started it out with the idea that I wanted to share the people, the places, the events, the experiences that made a difference in my life that I learned something from. And so um, I don't think I could have told you before I started writing that book what very many of them were. Now there are too many to even talk about. But I will say I recommend for those you may not be as old as I am, because hardly anybody is, but for those who have lived into their more mature years, let's say, it's a wonderful exercise to do that. It's just an extraordinary experience. You'll find you remember a lot more than you thought you did, and you'll appreciate uh, other people and you'll appreciate yourself for what you managed to achieve, what you accomplished, what you're able to get through. So I think just appreciating yourself and how much you've learned through the years is an exercise that, in addition to being grateful for all those who helped you get there, and sometimes people help you get there without knowing they were doing it, but it's still worth appreciating all of them. It's a wonderful experience.
I love that. So, like, and you're saying specifically like the exercise of writing a memoir of
Yeah.
your life.
You don't have to wait till my age to do it, but maybe it's a little early for you, Liz.
Are you a journaler or not
No,
really?
my train my my original degree was in teaching kids with learning problems, and so I think I don't teach kids anymore much, but I think the idea of helping people get past things that block them, that keep them from being as successful as they could be, that keep them from having as full a life as they're capable of having. So I think I still do that kind of thing, but differently
Hey, I
now.
believe so. It sounds like it. Do you keep a personal journal? Is what I'm
No.
no. No. Interesting. So you're an avid writer. You're an
I'll
avid
tell you,
writer.
I'll confess this. When I was in high school, I read the journal of someone who's kind of a hero of mine that not many people know that they've heard of, but they have, and that was Wanda Gog. And the way you would have heard of her is if anybody read you the story of Millions of Cats as a child. But she was an artist, and she wrote this very long and involved memoir, and I decided, "Oh, I'm going to do the same thing." And I started it, and I was just certain this was as a 12-year-old. I was just quite certain it'd be very important for me to do that because, of course, I would be very famous one day and people would want to read read my memoir from age 12. And I think it took me 3 days to forget about doing it. And I think I did that 2 or 3 times in my life, and I finally went, "I'm not gonna do this."
It's just not for
I
you.
probably won't be famous, and in any case, nobody's gonna run and read about it.
Oh,
So,
that's too funny.
that was the
No,
end of that.
I think it's I always think it's really interesting to see how people like to process their ideas, right? It's like it sounds like you're writing articles and books and journal and contributions to journals and things like that. Like that's been a big outlet for your ideas. I love journaling personally, and I've been better at sometimes in my life than others. I always think it's interesting to see, and my grandpa was a lot like you in terms of like he loved to write editorials and articles that would go into journals and local papers and things like that. And so anyway, just really interesting to see how people like to process ideas.
Lizanne, I think journaling is great. What I was pointing out to you is I've never had the discipline to keep it up. So, if you can keep it
So
up, I totally respect that. That's great.
it's all good. I think yeah, I mean for me it's been a really powerful tool for reflection in my life, and it's been a tool for personal growth, but it's definitely, for a while I thought I was gonna do it because I was gonna be famous, and
Of
who
course.
knows? I mean, life's not over yet, but really, it's just become a tool for, my internal work, my
That's
personal
great.
reflection and things
Yeah.
like that, so I enjoy that.
So you don't have to wait until you're in your 80s to write a memoir because 'cause you'll have it all. I think there's some things that are still probably better done by human beings.
Well, Kim, it has been absolutely fantastic to have this conversation with you and to have your wealth of knowledge and just like your down to earth nature combined with your wealth of experience. And so, I wanted to just thank you from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of the listeners today for coming onto the podcast. And it's been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you, Lizanne. I've enjoyed it very much, and you ask great questions.
Thank you so much. So for people that want to find your books or your consulting or follow you on social media, like give us the details.
Sure.
Where can you be found?
Well, first of all, you can find my company by going to www.barnesconti, that's all one word, .com. And there's a lot of information on there about what we do, what we teach, and the various services that we offer. To get in touch with me, you can go to LinkedIn and it's initial B, Cam Barnes. Never have used that first name, but I've never lost the initial. So That's how you find me on LinkedIn. And if you want to contact me through that, I'd be happy to respond.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your generosity. And guys, I'm going to put those links in the episode notes so you can have access to those and link directly out to those. And your books are on your website as well for people to
They
access.
are. Yes. Yes, I think even the mysteries are on there, but you can also find the
I love it.
if you go to
Okay, perfect.
B. Kim Barnes on Amazon, you'll find my professional books, but you'll also find the two mysteries.
I love it. And I'm grateful that you're bridging the gap between nonfiction and fiction as well. That's great. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning into the Marketing Matrix. I know that your time is valuable. So, for you being willing to spend some moments with us today and to be able to hear a little bit more about what Kim does in her story, it means the world to both of us. So, thank you so much. And until next time on the Marketing Matrix.
Bye.